On today's Locked On Senators, well, it was close for almost two periods. The Sens get absolutely demolished by the Carolina Hurricanes.
And the trade deadline may be over, but that didn't stop the Ottawa Senators from acquiring two AHL centermen.
And March Madness might be on the court, but playoff hockey is underway in college, and a key Sens prospect has been eliminated. Will he be signing soon? We'll get into all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1004 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller in the heart of our nation's capital, Ottawa, Ontario. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Send Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello and let you know that a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today is Monday, March 18th, and Pilsy, happy belated birthday. I know you stopped by the POSTCAST, but what was your boots on the ground report from your time at the CTC yesterday?
Well, it's always great to be back at the CTC, so I always say it's like my second home, so I felt that way again. It was great to meet a bunch of people at the game, as per usual, and the score was not great as the Ottawa Senators lose 7-2 to the Carolina Hurricanes. Ross, you not being there, we didn't get to have our record of 12-0-1.
Wasn't on the line.
Strong.
Wasn't on the line.
Yeah, it wasn't on the line. I'll be honest, I wanted to have some optimism, being like, okay, it's my birthday, it's St. Paddy's Day, they're going to win this one, or at least make it close. But deep down, I knew this was going to go poorly. The Carolina Hurricanes are one of those teams where they have the structure, they have the coaching, they have the back end that teams like that, the Ottawa Senators, typically struggle up against, and we certainly saw that in last night's game.
You know, their coach is a free agent this summer.
There's no chance Rod Brind'Amour leaves Carolina.
Do you know where he's from? You happen to know where he's from?
No, I'm aware of that. What we'll get Stevie Yzerman as the new GM too. We'll just bring all the Ottawa boys back.
Let's go. Maybe Claude Julien will be his assistant coach. Bruce Cassidy. We get the whole gang back together.
True. Yeah, that sounds good to me, Ross. Let's sign me up for that. Because watching a team that goes into the third only down one, allow 4 unanswered goals in the third is not what I want to continue to see. So if we can get some changes in here, that would be good. But it's really unfortunate because, Ross, at the start of the game, I mentioned to Martian that the Canes were really going for Anton Forsberg's glove. And he was stopping them to start the game. But that really seemed like one of those check the game notes. And they obviously had some sort of stats on Anton Forsberg high glove because they were going there, and eventually they were able to beat him throughout the game. And it wasn't the typical firepower that we usually see from the Carolina Hurricanes. Aho had 3 assists, but no goals from Aho or Svechnikov. Gensel, Kuznetsov, the new guys, they get in the mix there. No goals from Necas either. So it wasn't the usual characters that were getting the goals, but they're chipping in offensively. But this Hurricanes team is just too stacked for the Ottawa Senators to be able to play 3 full periods up against, apparently.
Yeah, they're good. Look, they've won 6 of their last 7 games. Look, Ottawa, you could call it a schedule loss. They get the win on Long Island with travel back-to-back. But the Hurricanes played last night, or 2 nights ago, I should say, Saturday night in Toronto. They got a shootout win, so they go past extra time.
Yep.
It's a night game for them rather than an afternoon game for Ottawa. So scheduling had nothing to do with it. This was just a better team The Carolina Hurricanes are a better team than the Ottawa Senators. The discrepancy is very large, and the Ottawa Senators just got beat. And I think that when you're looking at the roster in itself, you heard Dave Poulin last Tuesday on Locked On Senators say every period is an opportunity. And when they're down a goal, how are you going to respond? How are you going to play? And they showed in the third period they did not want it enough. Now, I do think that goaltending was a big issue in this, and we could beat the dead horse even further if you want to, but an 816 save percentage, you're just not going to win games. 3 goals during a 5-shot stretch, not going to win many games when that happens. It's about as deflating as it gets, and the Ottawa Senators just could not bounce back. I thought that once the Sens tied it up on Tim Stützle's goal, they were the better team from that moment, which happened, 4:51 into the second period. For the next 15 minutes, they were the better team, and I don't think it was necessarily that close. But then they gave up that goal with 22 seconds left in the period, a little backdoor feed to Seth Jarvis. He puts it in the back of the net, and it just felt like the team thought it was a 2-period game. They felt like they were defeated after that goal and that they weren't even going to bother tying their skates for the third period. It was pretty disheartening, and I'd imagine the crowd was less than pleased with that third period effort.
Yeah, it was tough. People were leaving the CTC early. Honestly, the Orlov goal, that was it.
Which one?
The second one, not the first Orlov goal. Imagine first Orlov goal. People were out of here. Yeah, it was done.
Opening goal, by the way, for those who might have missed it.
Yes, opening goal for Dmitry Orlov, assisted by Brendan Lemieux, who had a goal and an assist. That's not what you want to see.
Nearly doubled his season output.
What a joke he is. But yeah, Ross, that second Dmitry Orlov goal, that's where people were like, okay, we're done. We're done. And a lot of the crowd ended up leaving there. So that was tough to watch. But yeah, I agree with you. That Seth Jarvis goal, that was the backbreaker, because it really felt like the Ottawa, it ends up being the game winner, but it really felt like the Sens were in it. And if you just lasted a little bit longer, get to that intermission, and you're tied 2-2, maybe the Ottawa Senators still probably lose that game, but at least it doesn't seem like Carolina. Like, I feel like when they score that goal, the Jarvis goal, Carolina's like, we got him right where we want him. And then they just took it away from there. And there was no coming back for the Sens after that.
The Hurricanes are going to be a tough out in this postseason. There's no doubt about that. They're deep. Yeah. They've got 3 lines that can really beat you. And I mean, the fourth line also contributed in that win last night against Ottawa. So 7-2 is the final score. Again, though, my trend continues of the Senators' goals coming from meaningful players. Chabot and Stützle, the only goals for the Ottawa Senators last night. So it's like the last 13 goals that have come from the core. But one member of the core that's just not getting it done. We don't have to get into it. We talked so much about it before the trade deadline, but like Jacob Chychrun, another 0 all across the board. He's gone 8 straight without a point. He's got 1 assist in his last 15 games. Under Jacques Martin, he's now played 40 games, nearly half a season. He's minus 19 and has 10 points in 40 games. He had 10 points in like the first 9 games of the season. I just don't know what's happened. I'm sure that the trade rumors, we know that he was active on Twitter, a little bit of a blocking spree with people, not us, credit to us, but with other fans who are, saying rude things or whatnot, not even tagging him. But I feel like that's kind of gotten into his, he just looks scared to make mistakes. And ironically, that's causing him to make even more mistakes. And it wasn't just his fault yesterday. There was plenty of blame to go around, but he was so elite offensively at the start of the season, and it's just completely disappeared. Disappeared.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened here. Maybe the new coaching staff, the way they do things hasn't agreed with Jacob Chychrun. I'm not sure, but yeah, you mentioned he's minus 19 since Jacques Martin took over. He's minus 20 on the season. So he was sitting at a -1 before that and just all the way down since. And just the decision making is what's tough for me, Ross. There's so many times where I'm like, what's he doing there? Like, I forget which goal it was, but he loses his stick and it's not that far away from him. I was so shocked he didn't just go scoop it up quick. Instead, he kind of stands in no man's land. And I thought this was an interesting move. He's trying to get Claude Giroux to give him his stick. Claude is probably like, no, no dice on that one. Yeah, I'm gonna hold on to this. You figure it out. And then obviously they score, and Chychrun's kind of looking around like, damn. But yeah, the decline of Jacob Chychrun has been concerning, absolutely. And Ross, maybe that's a reason why he didn't get traded at the deadline. Maybe management was like, oh, we're not about to trade this guy when his value's down, even though you can do the sell him for 2 playoff pushes thing. But maybe the value was much lower than they thought it could be, and either they're going to hope for the offseason or try to shine him up and increase the value and trade him later. I don't know. I feel like it's inevitable that a trade's going to happen. It just doesn't seem like he's fitting here, and I don't know how he's going to fit here in the future when you got Sanderson and Chabot locked up.
Under Jacques Martin, Chychrun is tied with Parker Kelly with 10 points and has one more point than Jacob Bernard-Docker, who's sitting at 9, just to put you in kind of the area that he's in. But anyways, last night was much deeper than that, or as shallow as an .816 save percentage. The Ottawa Senators, goals saved above expected in last night's game. Pilsy, do you want to take a guess? So out of the goals saved above expected, where do you think the Senators were last night with their goaltending?
Like ranked in the league?
No, so in each game, like an expected goal, right? So last night, the Hurricanes had, I believe, it's just loading here, but I believe they had 3 expected goals, which would kind of give away the answer here for you.
I don't know. Hit me.
Forsberg gave up 4 goals above expected in last night's
that
game.
makes sense. Math guy. Nice.
Just not going to win a whole lot of games with that type of goaltending. But the Belleville Sens are finding ways to win. They got a huge victory on Saturday night, and now they've added some more firepower to the lineup. And is more coming as well? We'll get into whether or not we expect Stephen Halliday to sign out of the University of Ohio State. And who the heck are Jamison Reese and Wyatt Bongiovanni? Those conversations are next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, tons of time, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with the 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with the 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Check it out today, guys. Robinhood.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our good friends at Shawarma Palace. You could call it my happy place. Shawarma Palace is my first stop every time I'm in the city of Ottawa because Shawarma Palace guarantees the most delicious meal. At Shawarma Palace, I'm always leaving with a full tummy and usually leftovers because their platter is just so stacked with all the freshest ingredients. We're talking about the bed of rice. We're talking about the garlic sauce, the hummus. There's veggies. There's all sorts of beautiful chicken right off the spit, right on there. Absolutely delicious. You can also get the sandwich if you're in a rush. Bang, go in. You're out in 2 minutes with your Shawarma Palace sandwich in hand. It's always delicious, and it's always available because Shawarma Palace has 7 locations all across the city of Ottawa. They started in 1997 with just 1 location, and now they've got you covered all around town. Go to their Bank and Hunt Club location. You can find them in Orleans, in Centertown. You're never too far away from a Shawarma Palace. If you're looking to get it delivered, easy. Just head to Uber Eats, and exclusively at Uber Eats, you can get them delivered. It's the official shawarma of the Ottawa Senators. You can get their game day platter. Great deal. I always see the commercials, and I'm too far away to get it. It's so jealous-inducing, and I know that my first stop when we get to Ottawa in 3 weeks from now is going to Shawarma Palace. So do it for me. Go to Shawarma Palace and eat like a royal today. Go eat at Shawarma Palace. All right, Billsy, just a little correction there. The expected goals last night actually favored Ottawa, 3.2 to 2.73. So
wow.
On 2.73 expected goals, the Hurricanes were able to get a converted touchdown past Anton Forsberg. Like, this season, it could be summed up into special teams and goaltending. A lot of hockey can when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, but last night was no exception.
Yeah, especially when it's as egregious as the Ottawa Senators goaltending and special teams. And Marcia and I sat down and we're like, whew, thank goodness we avoided a Korpisalo start. Like, we get the Forsey start. That's nice. Like, that we'll hold on to that as a positive moving forward. And sure enough, the Ottawa Senators give up the first goal, which, I mean, the first goal I'm not going to put on Forsey. That was a great breakaway out of the box from Dmitry Orlov. Not much you can do there, but the rest of the game did not go his way.
So when you sort by goals saved above expected in terms of the entire National Hockey League all season, the three Senators goalies are ranked second worst, fifth worst, and eighth worst in the entire National Hockey League.
Ugh.
No other team has two, let alone three, in the bottom eight in the entire National Hockey League. Pillsy, it pains me to say that as a goalie-friendly show, but it's just frankly has not been good enough. And there's nothing more back-breaking to a team's momentum than not getting a key save at a key time. And I was feeling so good, Pillsy, because they stopped the first two shots in last night's game. I said, we're all good. Yeah. We're saved. We're saved. No, they still get a goal. And it was after a Sens power play, too.
Yeah, that was tough. Marcia and I gave the Bronx cheer when Forsey got the first one, and the second one we were like, that's two, and everyone was pretty stoked about that, but didn't last much longer.
No, it didn't. You know what? I'm sick of talking about this game. You want to hear more about it? You real sicko, you? Go check out last night's postcast wherever you get your podcast. Pillsy, we're on to happier subjects, and that's the Belleville Senators. Now, the Belleville Senators made two trades. Well, actually, Ottawa made two trades because both of these players are signed to NHL deals. Now, what I will say about these additions is they're buy low, obviously. They got Wyatt Bongiovanni from the Manitoba Moose in exchange for future considerations. And then they make a trade with the Carolina Hurricanes, getting Jamison Reese for what ends up being a 6th-round pick.
Sens get the last laugh here. They made a beat us 7-2, but we fleeced them in the Reese trade. We
certainly did. And funny enough, I don't know if you saw the background of Jamison Reese. That was actually a pick that was traded first in the Erik Karlsson trade to Ottawa. That was a San Jose 2nd-rounder to Ottawa. And then Ottawa traded that pick to move up to get Mad Sogard. So that pick's been on the move quite a bit. And now Jamison Reese comes to Belleville, and why I'm really high on this trade in particular, and not necessarily for an NHL upside, but Jamison Reese had a great season, not this one, but last, with the Charlotte Wolves while they were still, did I say Charlotte? Chicago Wolves, while they were still affiliated with the Carolina Hurricanes. Had 42 points, 92 penalty minutes in 65 games, and he was only 21 years old at the time. But now, without having a team to play for, in terms of the Carolina Hurricanes do not have an AHL affiliate. I believe they're the only team in the NHL that doesn't. He was assigned to what was actually the St. Louis Blues affiliate. And why would they care to play him? They didn't. And because of that, he suffered greatly, had no goals this year through 30 games with them. So now he's going to be in a system that actually cares about his development. And I think as a just turned 23-year-old, I think he might be a player to watch for the rest of the season for Belleville. And they are eligible for AHL playoffs. the AHL trade deadline was Friday. So both these moves happened just before that.
Yeah, and when I first saw the Jameson Reese trade, I was like, this is such a weird, why did Ottawa put time and effort into this deal, especially Ross, because I just looked up his stats this year, and I was like, what is going on here? Like, what's the point of putting the concentration calories into this guy that hasn't had any success this year? But I think you hit the real point there. Is he was a victim of no AHL team for the Hurricanes, so he wasn't getting the opportunities. I think he's going to get the opportunities in Belleville, and apparently it's a weird move for the Hurricanes not to have an AHL team. I know their owner is a very kind of dollar-wise eccentric guy. Like, he's not just going to do the traditional status quo of hockey. He tries to think outside the box and save money in different ways, which is fine.
Whoa, it'd be interesting if he tries to save money on his next coach.
Yeah, true. Although, that'll
pave the way. I'm willing this into existence. Get Rod the Bod to Ottawa.
I would love that. Yeah, absolutely. Apparently, they're not too worried about prospects, as they gave 30 prospects to the Penguins in the Gensel trade. So they're like, who needs prospects? We don't even have a team for them to play on. But yeah, I'm interested in Jameson Reese for sure. Anytime you can get a second round pick that still is fairly young, only 23 years old. He has good AHL experience, and the Belleville Senators are really trying to do something this year. They're positioned in a good spot, 4th place in the North Division, so they could use some reinforcements. And I think this could end up being a nice little pickup that for a 6th round pick, when you have so many 4th round picks, it could end up being a good one for the Sens. So I don't mind it.
We reached out to our guy, Scott Wheeler, who just did his prospect rankings, and he had Jameson Reese as the 13th ranked prospect for Carolina, but he would say that he would be around 8th for the Ottawa Senators. So getting the top 8 prospect in your system for a 6th round pick when you already have 3 4th rounders this year seems like an absolute no-brainer for the Ottawa Senators. So I'm going to be excited to watch how he fits in to the fold here. In the write-up, Scott Wheeler just says that he plays, it almost feels like kind of a buzzsaw type player. So, he's going to be an impactful player in many ways, whether he's hunting down loose pucks, fighting for body positioning to make plays against bigger players, because he's only 5'11", but fiery is a word that comes to mind with a good stick. So we'll be watching him over the next little while. He made his AHL debut with the Belleville Senators on Saturday night. Big win for Belleville, as we mentioned. But not only him, but Wyatt Bongiovanni, these two guys are just going to make them deeper and hopefully allow Belleville to go on a bit of a run here, because as we wake up on Monday morning, Belleville is 1 point back of Rochester for 3rd in the North Division, and the Marlies are tied with Belleville and have played 1 less game. So 13 games left for Belleville in the regular season. It feels like you really want to finish 3rd, because we got to get some home playoff games at the CAA arena. Need it.
Yeah, the people of Belleville need that. And Ross,
they've never had one. They've never had a home playoff game.
Yeah, because last time it was best
both
of 3
games.
series, and both were in Rochester, and they lost both of them. Even though Belleville was the better seed, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, because it was like you play 2 there, then 3 in Belleville. Or no, it's best 2 of 3 or best 3 out of 5.
Oh yeah, no, true. Wait,
best
what?
3 out of 5? Let us know in the comments.
And they must have played 1.
No, they didn't play at home.
Yeah, so it was a best of 3 where Belleville got the last home game then?
Makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll fact check that. Something seems off there.
Our stats department's on it.
Okay, while you're doing that, quick note on Wyatt Bongiovanni. Okay. I think you were mentioning, Ross, as he's from the Manitoba Moose, so right in your neck of woods there, that the Moose just had way too much center depth, and he was another victim of not being able to get the ice time that he probably deserved. So that's interesting to see the Belleville Senators and the scouting staff, kind of the pro scouting staff, looking at guys like, hey, who's not being allowed to have the opportunity that they can reach their potential with, finding those guys and being able to acquire them. So that's a good way to try to pump up your prospect pipeline and add depth to your AHL teams. So I like that. At least the season is well over for the Ottawa Senators, but let's try to put some focus into Belleville and get some positivity there. So I like both these moves.
We mentioned Reese is 23 years old. Bon Giovanni is 24 years old. He'll be 25 in July. But another thing, and Boris Kachuk in the same boat, all three of these players that have been acquired by Ottawa are all restricted free agents after the season. So they don't have to be qualified, but at least you have that level of control with the player moving into his next contract. So we'll be watching closely. And could Belleville be adding another disher? We'll get into that conversation next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. We are your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is the official online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and it's North America's #1 sportsbook. Everyone's getting their March Madness brackets ready, trying to figure out who's going to go all the way to the championship. But if you've done a March Madness bracket before, whether you're an expert or a casual, you probably know there's a good chance your bracket's going to get busted pretty soon on, and you don't want to just lose interest in the whole tournament because your bracket's busted. So with FanDuel, you can bet on every single game of the tournament, whether you got a good bracket or not. Whether you want the big upset or you're just going to ride the favorites, the hot hands, you can do that all on FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, over-unders, whatever you like, or maybe put some money on a future. Who's going to win it all? You can do that at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut the nets down. Check it out today, guys. FanDuel.
All right, Billsy, here we are on Monday. Another 4-game week for the Ottawa Senators beginning tomorrow in Boston. They'll take on the Bruins at 7 o'clock, then come back home for a Thursday matchup against the St. Louis Blues. On Saturday, the Sens will be in New Jersey, another 7 o'clock puck drop, and then a 6 p.m. game against the Edmonton Oilers on March 24th at the CTC. Both of the home games this week, you can take the Glebe Central Pub shuttle. Go check them out, GlebeCentralPub.com. Sens vs. Blues on Thursday and Sens vs. Oilers on Sunday. Pilsy, we'll have plenty of time to talk Sens hockey. I want to continue on the Belleville Senators slant right now. And if you're looking at the schedule coming up for the Belleville Sens, they can really put a nail in the Laval Rockets season over the next 2 weeks. Right now, Laval, who's out of a playoff spot, looking in, this is how tight the North Division is. They're only 4 points back of third place. So 3rd and 6th, we're talking about a home playoff game, and we're talking about a team outside looking in, separated by 4 points. Laval is 3 points behind Belleville. B-Sens have 1 game in hand, but 4 of Belleville's next 5 games are against Laval.
Oof.
4 of their next 5 games. So this could be a big turning point in both of their seasons.
And it's perfect time to bring in the reinforcements, right? You get Bon Giovanni and Reese. So it's nice to have those guys added to the team and hopefully get a little time, get some practices under the belt, meet the guys, get accustomed to the coaching staff, and then they can be even more prepared for these big games up against Laval. Because, yeah, that's huge. They have to hold off the Laval Rocket because I don't think, well, I mean, it's possible they could miss the playoffs, but I think more we're worried about being in 5th place, like you mentioned, and you don't want to have that bottom seed. That's for sure.
No, you can't. You can't. I won't even accept you saying that they could miss the playoffs. This Belleville
that's
team
the
has
thing.
to be good.
I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah.
Now,
so you want that seeding in your favor.
Now, what about Stephen Halliday? We've been talking about him a lot. He's
Yep.
been on our list of top 10 Sens prospects. He's a friend of the show. He's joined us, I believe, 3 times. Really good dude. Like, great disher, obviously. Set the franchise record for the Dubuque Fighting Saints in the USHL. I believe he's like 4th all-time in USHL scoring. And then he went into college and just continued to score. In his, 78 college games with the Ohio State Buckeyes, he had 77 points. Is this a player that if you are the Sens management team, you're looking to get out of college at all costs? Or are you going to say basically, hey, we've got an ATO for you if you want to finish the season, and then we'll sign you in the offseason? and then you leave it at that. And if he wants to go back for his junior season, you would still hold his rights afterwards. But how would you play it out right now with Stephen Halliday?
No, I'm trying to get Halliday on Belleville for sure. I think that's a guy that's ready. He has so much experience in the USHL and then NCAA. He's 21 years old. He's got good size, 6'3", 214 pounds is what they have him on EP. And I just feel like he's a guy that's ready, and you want him in your system sooner rather than later. And he's been one of those guys. Like, we talked to Scott Wheeler, a lot of prospect and analysts. Sorry, I messed up that word. Analysts, that's what I'm looking for. They all say they like the skill that Stephen Halliday has. Sure, his skating is a little slow. That's what they always key on, and that's fine, because his hockey IQ and his passing ability is so top tier that I think he's going to be just fine. And then if he's able to use his size to be able to transition to the pro game smoothly, I think this is a guy that can jump into Belleville and make an impact pretty quickly here. So especially Ross, like, you start looking at the center depth. If you can get, you've just added Reese Bongiovanni, and then now you add Stephen Halliday, like, getting 3 new centermen would be a big boost for this Belleville Senators team. So I'm all for bringing the disher to Belleville.
Me too. And you'd think maybe some power play help he could also bring, with the ability to see the ice and the offensive vision he has. The thing with Halliday, and it might take a bit of an adjustment period, is I don't think he'll be the quickest skater at any level, but he's been able to adjust at every level he's been at so far, been able to find ways and passing lanes. And I think he'd be a perfect complementary piece. And we know with Belleville especially, they're having some problems keeping everyone in the lineup every game because there's a maximum veterans of guys who've played over 240 games. So there are going to be nights where maybe a guy like Chartier, or a guy when he's back from injury, obviously, and other guys are going to have to come out and in the lineup the way that you want to play against a different team. So Halliday could be a perfect guy in the mix with the Oscar Petterssons of the world. And we hope Tyler Boucher is going to be back from his injury eventually. But at this point, I'm not really counting on it, although we haven't gotten an update. We don't even know what the injury is, to be frank with you. But it feels like he has some offensive upside that could pop right away and add a different element maybe than what Belleville has. So I'm all for Stephen Halliday signing. I'm sure we'll find out in the next couple of days usually. And his team lost on Saturday night, so it's still pretty fresh. It hasn't even been 48 hours. But I do think that you give the kid 2, 3, 4 days, however long they need. I think with the Nodak Sens, it took about 4 to 5 days before each of them signed and came. I mean, Sanderson was hurt at the time, so it wasn't as urgent to get him in the mix. But I think for Halliday, the sooner he can get into the pro system, much like Pettersson, I think that it's going to be good for his development. And he was 6th on our top 10 Sens prospects in February this year. So he's a player we're obviously super excited about.
Yeah, and he's going to help guys like Crooker, Igor. Like, he's going to help set those guys up for big goals. So I'd love to see it.
Absolutely. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is thanks to everyone who saw me at the games, said what up, said happy birthday. It was great to see everyone, although the game was a terrible display for the Ottawa Senators. It was still a blast getting to catch up with everyone and meet some of the favorites and people we always see around, Dr. Bob, Kevin. So it was awesome to be at the CTC, as it always is. It's always great to be there. The Sens team may be one of the worst, but Sens fans are best in class.
They certainly are, and we got one more visit to the CTC plan this year for the final home game of the season against Montreal. We're both bringing our better halves to the game, so that'll be a blast. And Pillsy and I, our next boots on the ground will be a week and a half away in Winnipeg. We're starting a little back-to-back action, well, games at least. There's a couple days in between to get to Minnesota. So any Minnesota Sens fans want to grab a pint, we'd love to have a little Sens Army meetup pregame, get the citizens involved. So let us know there. We do have our tickets for the Minnesota game. I had some people asking, hey, do you guys have a section? What's going on in Winnipeg? We are monitoring the prices right behind the Sens bench. I think that would be hilarious
on
if
game
we were
time.
able to get there on game time. It's the only place that we go for tickets. But if we're traveling cross country, we want to be dialed in. We did get the tickets on game time, but we made sure that we got that. And my goal, because Minnesota's on the outside looking in the West, I'm hoping that they go on a bit of a run here. They're 5 points behind Vegas right now. and I want them to get close and then have us just spoil all the fun in that game. That's what my goal is for the next couple. But the playoff race in the East is awesome, and we'll be following that sporadically through the rest of this. Detroit gets a loss, and hilarious to see Detroit writers being like, hey, you notice that DeBrincat has 4 even strength goals in the last 49 games? And I was like, I'm pretty sure I tweeted something identical to that. And I looked up the date, and he had 4 even strength goals in the first 30 games of 3 last year in Ottawa.
Yeah.
So I was like, I feel like
we tried to warn them.
I feel like I know that stat. Well, anyways, they've lost 7 out of the last 8 games and are still somehow in a playoff spot right now. But the walls are closing in because Washington's won 2 in a row. So the Capitals are right there, 1 point back of Detroit, and the Islanders are 1 point back. So it's going to be a dogfight there to come in down the stretch. There are 12 games remaining for the Red Wings, and these other teams have games in hand on them. So I'm excited. 14 games left for the Red Wings. But we're almost at the first round of the playoffs, which is the best time of year. So we'll be here every step of the way. Draft coverage coming right after the season. We also have a coaching search in Ottawa. Trades are going to come down the pipe for the Senators. And how do you get to the playoffs next year? Those are all questions that we will be diving deep in to get the answers here over the next stretch on Locked On Senators. But for today, we say goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you all. Have a great day. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.